Hey, this is Marcus from Storyfront. The moment I stepped into my daughter's wedding, I knew something was wrong. My seat was near the kitchen, my name card. It read caretaker, not blood, no speech slot, no mention in the program. Then her biological mother and manipulative uncle showed up uninvited. They thought they'd erased me. But when my daughter handed me the mic, I told the truth. And what happened next silenced the entire room and ended the wedding for good. I remember exactly how it felt when I walked into the grand hall of Blue Ridge Estate that morning. My hands were a little sweaty despite the fall air in Asheville being cool and crisp. The floral arrangements, the gleaming chandelier, the polished silverware, everything about Emily's wedding screamed perfection. Except the look I got when I arrived. It was subtle at first, a raised eyebrow here, a half smile there, but I could feel it. I always do. I stood still for a moment, adjusted my navy suit, then headed toward the main reception area. A young man in a black vest handed me a seating card. I thanked him and turned it over, expecting to see something like father of the bride. Instead, it read, caretaker, not blood. I froze. My breath caught for a second. The font was classy gold foil on heavy cream paper. But the words, they hit like a slap. I didn't react, not outwardly. I folded the card, slowly tucked it into my inner pocket, and walked to my assigned table near the back of the room, table 17, right next to the waiter's exit. As I sat down, I could feel eyes following me. There was a low murmur at the nearby tables, mostly from Noah's side of the family. His uncle, the silver-haired one with the smug grin, gave me a slow once-over, then leaned toward another guest. They both chuckled. I kept my gaze fixed on the empty wine glass in front of me. My knuckles were white from how hard I gripped the edge of the table. I've faced firestorms before, literally. 24 years as a firefighter, and I never flinched going into a burning house. But that moment, that single phrase printed on a card, it burned hotter than anything I'd ever run into. I didn't know if Emily had seen it. I didn't want to believe she had, but someone on the planning team had approved it. Someone had printed it. Someone had placed it exactly where I would see it first. A server walked by and paused. She was young, maybe Emily's age. She hesitated before pouring water into my glass. "Are you her dad?" she asked, soft but curious. I gave a tight nod. "Yes, I am." She blinked a bit confused and then smiled politely before walking off. Around me, the other tables were starting to fill up. The Mitchell family looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine, all polished shoes, pastel dresses, and forced laughter. Gregory Shaw, Emily's biological uncle, stood confidently near the center. He was talking animatedly to a group of guests. He spotted me and gave a small nod, the kind that dripped with contempt. I had dealt with Gregory before years ago. The man had tried to rip Emily from my arms when she was only a child, claiming blood meant more than love. He lost that battle, but clearly he never forgot. And now this, a calculated jab dressed in gold foil. I took a deep breath and looked around. The hall was beautiful, and Emily deserved every bit of it. She had worked so hard to get to this day. Her dress was breathtaking ivory with lace detailing her hair up in a soft bun, her smile radiant. When she entered, everyone stood and clapped. I stood too, a bit slower than the rest. She looked in my direction briefly. Her eyes lingered a second longer than necessary. There was something there. Guilt, worry. Then she was gone again, swallowed by the crowd of well-wishers, Noah's family, and the photographer. I sat back down. The band played something soft. I forced myself to sip from the glass. I didn't want to make a scene. This was her day. My job was to be quiet, smile when needed, and fade into the background. But as the applause died down and the MC took the stage, that card burned in my pocket like a brand. Caretaker, not blood. They thought that label would diminish me, but all it did was remind me of everything they didn't know, everything I had done, everything I had protected her from. They didn't know the nights I stayed awake when she had fevers. They didn't know I sold my pickup just to afford her braces. They didn't know she used to call me Daddy Fire Truck until she was 8. Caretaker, not blood, maybe. But I was the man who raised her. And one way or another, before this day ended, they were going to learn exactly what that meant. Back then, it was 2000, a brutal January night in Knoxville. I was only 27, barely 5 years into my job with the fire department. We were called in for a house fire in a rough part of town. Single-story place flames already crawling up the siding when we arrived. I remember the snowflakes melting on my jacket as I rushed inside. We pulled 2 adults out of that house, both unconscious. No pulse. There was nothing we could do. Then in a back room, wrapped in a damp towel inside a scorched crib, we found her. She was barely moving, her cries faint, but she was alive. Baby girl, not more than 9 months old, covered in soot, cheeks red from the heat. I carried her out myself. The paramedics checked her vitals. Somehow she hadn't inhaled much smoke. They loaded her into the ambulance. I rode with her. At the hospital, they asked me questions I couldn't answer. Was she related to the couple in the house? Was there a name, anyone to contact? No one came. Not that night. Not the next day. I kept checking in. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the way she had clung to my shirt in the ambulance, or how her tiny hand had wrapped around my finger. The nurses started calling me Fireman Dad. I didn't correct them. 2 weeks passed. No one claimed her. The social worker said she'd be placed in the system soon. I couldn't let that happen. I asked what it would take. They told me it was complicated. Background checks, home visits, legal hoops. I said fine. I would jump through them all. And I did. By spring, she was living in my apartment. I'd baby-proofed the whole place, bought second-hand furniture, watched every parenting video the library had. She took her first steps in the hallway outside my bedroom, said her first word in the grocery store. It was up. Her name came from the only thing the nurses found near her crib, a charred picture with the name Emily scribbled on the back. I kept that photo, scorched edges and all. By the time the adoption was finalized, she was 2 and already calling me Dad. I remember the judge asking me why I wanted to adopt her. I said because I already had. I didn't need the paper to tell me what my heart already knew. Janet Shaw showed up a few months later. Claimed to be Emily's birth mother. No apology, no tears. Just a half-hearted story about being overwhelmed. Then she vanished again before the court could serve her. Over the years, I told Emily what I could age-appropriate bits of truth. I never hid the adoption, but I never made it a thing either. She was mine. That was that. We built a life. School recitals, scraped knees, science fairs. She loved pancakes and hated math. She talked in her sleep and kept a collection of snow globes. I was there for all of it, every little moment. So when I read that card today, when I saw those words designed to slice me down, they didn't cut deep, because I knew, and more importantly, she knew, or at least I hoped she still did. A server placed the salad in front of me. I hadn't even noticed her approach. I nodded in thanks and forced myself to pick up the fork. One way or another, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The first time I saw Gregory Shaw in person, it was a Tuesday morning in late spring 2010. I'd just dropped Emily off at school and was heading back to my truck when a black BMW pulled up behind me. Out stepped a man in his early 50s. Silver hair, slicked back charcoal suit too sharp for Knoxville's laid-back style. He introduced himself calmly like we were about to discuss real estate, not the life of a little girl. He said he was Janet Shaw's brother. He said he had concerns. That was his word, concerns. I told him to back off, politely, at first, but he didn't. Within 2 weeks, I received the notice he was filing for legal guardianship of Emily. Said I had no blood relation. Said I was exploiting a tragedy, said he was her only real family. I hired a lawyer that same day. Emily was 11, then smart beyond her years, but still a kid. I didn't tell her everything right away, just enough, that someone was trying to take her away. The case dragged on, 3 years, depositions, court dates, mediation sessions that went nowhere. Gregory's attorney painted me as unstable, said firefighters had dangerous jobs, that I was a single man living in an apartment too small. They said Emily needed roots, a real family name. I brought every school report, every doctor's record, every birthday photo. Her teachers testified. My neighbors did. Even our pediatrician showed up in court. But the most important moment came when the judge asked to speak with Emily. She wore a blue dress that day, one I'd ironed myself. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She walked into that chamber, sat in that tall leather chair, and told the judge she wanted to stay with me. That I was her dad. That was it. The court ruled in our favor, full custody. Gregory walked out without saying a word, but I remember the way he looked at me, like he wasn't finished. He tried to appeal, lost again. After that, he disappeared. No birthday cards, no contact, just silence. Until today. I sipped my water and glanced back toward the crowd near the front of the hall. There he was, Gregory, older now but still smug, still sharp, standing beside Noah's mother, laughing like he belonged. And I knew that card wasn't just passive aggression. It was calculated. It had his fingerprints all over it. He was back, and he brought his poison with him. But I wasn't the same man from 2010, and Emily wasn't the same little girl. If he wanted another fight, I was ready. The Mitchells were the kind of family you saw in magazines. Their smiles were always perfect, their clothes color-coordinated, and their social media posts looked like lifestyle ads. Noah fit right in. He had the jawline of a movie star, a polished LinkedIn profile, and a way of shaking your hand that somehow felt like a business transaction. Emily met him during her sophomore year at Cal Arts, where she was studying graphic design on a full scholarship. She called me the night she got it, sobbing with joy, and I remember sitting in my truck outside Station 9, grinning like an idiot. She moved out west and everything changed. Not right away. At first, we still FaceTimed twice a week. She'd show me her sketches, talk about her professors, ask about the dog. But slowly, the calls got shorter, less frequent. When she introduced me to Noah over video chat, I could tell he was smooth. Too smooth. He complimented my flannel shirt, asked about my time as a firefighter, then pivoted effortlessly to talk about his own work in marketing strategy. The whole conversation felt rehearsed. After they graduated, Emily stayed in Los Angeles. She started working freelance, designing logos and app interfaces. Noah climbed fast at a branding firm, then transferred to New York for a senior role. Within a year, they were engaged. The first time I met his parents in person was during a fundraiser they hosted in Manhattan. They'd invited Emily and me, but when I showed up, only one place card had my name misspelled. Nobody looked me in the eye for more than a second. It was all air kisses and small talk. Still, I played along. For her. Then came the real sting. A family brunch at the Mitchells' summer home in Connecticut, where Emily called to say apologetically that it would just be immediate family this time. She said it so gently, like she was telling me the weather might turn. I didn't say anything, just nodded even though she couldn't see me. That weekend, I saw the photos online. Emily sitting between Noah's parents, laughing with a mimosa in hand. Her dress was white. His mother's caption read, "Welcoming our future daughter-in-law." My name wasn't mentioned. After that, I stopped bringing up the wedding. I figured she'd tell me what I needed to know when she was ready. But the signs were there. The venue changes, the shifting tone of her voice, the growing silence. Once I tried to call her during a break at the station. She didn't answer, then texted back hours later. "Sorry, in a meeting. I love you." It felt like an afterthought. I told myself it was the distance, her career, her life blooming in a new city. But in my gut, I knew something was changing. And not just the normal father-daughter drift. This was orchestrated, intentional. I started to feel like an accessory, the man who raised her now reduced to a footnote. At dinner one night, a retired captain from the department asked about Emily's wedding. I told him I wasn't sure about the details. He looked confused. "Aren't you walking her down the aisle?" he asked. I gave a small smile. That hadn't been confirmed. He muttered something about ungrateful kids. I didn't argue, but I felt it, like a hairline crack forming in a foundation you thought was solid. Still, I didn't confront her. I didn't want to add pressure. I told myself she was navigating a new world, one that didn't have space for a man like me. But I watched, quietly. I read between her words, and when the invitation finally arrived with its embossed borders and a return address from Noah's mother's law office, I opened it with hands that trembled just slightly. It was beautiful, but formal. No personal note, no warmth. It felt like an obligation. And when I stepped into that hall today and read the card they'd prepared for me, I understood exactly where I stood. Not blood, just the man who raised her, who would now have to sit at the edge of her new life smiling politely as if I'd only ever been the hired help. But they didn't know the whole story, not yet. The engagement party was held at the rooftop of a luxury hotel in Tribeca. Everything was curated to perfection. String lights wrapped around the railings, jazz quartet in the corner. Waiters gliding through the crowd with trays of champagne and lobster sliders. The kind of place where even the ice cubes looked expensive. I arrived right on time, but no one was waiting for me. I spotted Emily by the bar wearing a deep emerald dress that made her look older, more poised. She was surrounded by people I didn't recognize. I gave her a small wave. She hesitated for a second before returning it. Then she turned back to her conversation. I made my way toward the guest book table. That's when I saw him, Gregory Shaw. 10 years hadn't softened his eyes or his smirk. He looked sharper, wealthier, like he had stepped out of a courtroom and into a cologne ad. He stood near the fireplace, a scotch in hand, chatting with Noah's father like they were old friends. He saw me, walked over slowly. Well, Henry Lawson. Still wearing off the rack, he said, not even trying to mask the conversation. I didn't rise to it, just stared at him. He sipped his drink. "So, big day for your little girl. Or should I say the girl you borrowed for 20 years? I took a deep breath. "Don't start, Gregory." He laughed quietly. "Relax. I'm not here to fight, just to celebrate. And maybe, observe." He leaned in a little. "I heard there won't be a speech slot for you at the reception. A little oversight, I'm sure." That one stung. Not because it was unexpected, but because he said it so casually, like it was a known fact. He patted me on the shoulder, then disappeared back into the crowd. I turned and caught the eye of one of Noah's uncles. The man raised his eyebrows, then looked away. Across the room, I noticed 2 women whispering, their eyes flicking toward me, then down to their flutes of champagne. I found a spot near the edge of the balcony away from the chatter. I needed air. The skyline was beautiful, but it felt distant, cold. Emily eventually approached. She was holding a glass of sparkling water, her posture a little too straight. "Dad, you made it," she said a little too brightly. "Of course I did." She nodded, then looked past me. I followed her gaze. Gregory was laughing with Noah's mother. You didn't tell me he'd be here. She bit her lip. I didn't know he was coming. He said he was invited by the Mitchells. I didn't think he would show. I kept my voice steady. Did you know I'm not giving a speech at the wedding? Her eyes dropped. It's complicated. Noah's family is traditional. They have expectations. Speeches are limited to the wedding party. I see. She looked up again. It's not about you, but it was, and we both knew it. She started to say something else, then stopped. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. I have to go mingle, but I'm glad you're here. She leaned in, kissed my cheek lightly, then walked away. I stood there for a while, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Around me the party swirled on, laughter, glasses clinking, polished smiles, perfect lighting. But all I felt was a slow crack forming somewhere deep inside. And I knew this wasn't just about one wedding. It was about being quietly erased, piece by piece. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to know about. One of Emily's cousins mentioned it offhand at a family dinner a few weeks before the wedding. Said something like, "It's nice she's finally getting to know her real mom." I froze. I went home that night and sat in my truck for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. Then I called Emily. She didn't pick up. A day later she texted. Just a simple, "Let's talk soon." That talk never came. Instead, 2 days after the engagement party, I saw her having coffee with a woman outside a cafe in Brooklyn. I recognized her instantly, even after all these years, Janet Shaw. She looked thinner than I remembered, but her hair was styled, her clothes expensive. She reached across the table and touched Emily's hand. I didn't approach them, just stood on the other side of the street watching. My chest felt like it was caving in. Later that week, Emily came by the house. She was nervous, fiddling with her bracelet, not making eye contact. I met her. She came to me. She's changed, Dad. She said she wants to make amends. I said nothing. She went on. She told me everything. About the fire, about why she left. It's complicated. She was scared, young, unstable. She didn't know how to be a mother. I still said nothing. She looked at me then. Really looked. "Dad, I'm not saying she's replacing you. I just think I should give her a chance." My voice was calm, but I could feel the storm building inside. "You don't owe her anything, Emily." She swallowed hard. "I know, but maybe I owe it to myself to hear her out." I nodded slowly. "If that's what you think you need to do." She smiled, faintly relieved, and I knew then that Janet had already gotten what she came for. A foothold. The next time I saw Janet, it was at the wedding rehearsal. She was standing with Gregory near the altar, laughing like they owned the place. She didn't approach me, just nodded once as if we were casual acquaintances. I caught part of their conversation later. Gregory was holding a piece of paper, showing it to one of the groomsmen. I moved closer. It was a copy of Emily's birth certificate, her original one. The section for father's name was blank. I stared at it. Gregory saw me and smiled. "Paperwork never lies," he said. I wanted to punch him, but instead I turned and walked away. That night I went home and pulled out every photo I had of Emily. Every drawing she made, every birthday card she gave me, every note signed with "Love you, Daddy." Janet might have given birth to her, but I raised her. And now they were trying to rewrite that history. Quietly, efficiently, piece by piece. The message came late, a voicemail from Thomas Reed, an old friend from the department who now worked in private security. "Henry just thought you should know. Someone pulled your guardianship file from the courthouse archives last week. Quiet request through a law office in Midtown. I don't have names yet, but I'll keep digging." I stared at the phone for a long time, then played the message again. I didn't have to guess who was behind it. There were only two people with a motive to undo everything I had built, Gregory and Janet. They weren't just trying to cast doubt. They were trying to erase me completely. The next day, while delivering a box of photo frames to the venue, Emily opened the final shipment of place cards. One by one, she checked the names, her fingers brushing over the delicate print. Then she found it. Henry Lawson, caretaker, not blood. Her breath caught in her throat. She reread it, again and again. The words didn't change. She sank into a chair, clutching the card. Her stomach turned. She had approved the final proofs. She had gone over every detail. But someone had tampered with this. She called Lana. Lana arrived in 20 minutes, heels clicking, eyes sharp. "Who the hell approved this?" she asked, snatching the card. "I didn't, I swear," Emily said. Lana didn't doubt her, but she didn't hesitate either. "We're fixing this. Now." That night in Emily's apartment, they sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by old albums, USB drives, and a stack of letters tied with ribbon. "I can't let them do this to him," Emily said. "He raised me. He sacrificed everything, and I've let them make him feel like a stranger." Lana nodded. "Then we go public. We build a case, visuals, documents, everything, and we drop it on the day, in front of everyone." They worked through the night. Lana built a slide deck like it was a trial. Emily pulled out birthday cards Henry had sent her in college. Old videos of him teaching her to ride a bike, footage of him in uniform at her 5th grade graduation. They printed statements, copied legal documents, even drafted a letter to the wedding planner demanding a correction to all materials. When they were done, it was nearly 4 a.m. Emily looked at her best friend. "Thank you." Lana smiled. "Let's remind them who the real parent is." And in that moment, Emily wasn't just a bride-to-be. She was a daughter ready to fight. The morning sun was too bright, the air too still. I stood outside the venue in my best suit, hands clenched in my pockets, staring at the grand double doors. Inside, the music was already playing, guests arriving in waves, all dressed like a spread from a lifestyle magazine. When I finally walked in, no one greeted me. A young usher with an earpiece led me to a table on the farthest edge of the ballroom near the kitchen doors, table 19. The only sound there was the clatter of servers resetting silverware. No name card for me at the front table. No program with my name listed, no mention in the itinerary. I was invisible. Emily passed by once, escorted by her bridesmaids, radiant in ivory satin. She caught my eye and offered a tight smile. I nodded, holding back the knot in my throat. My chest ached, but I stayed seated. When the MC began calling up speakers for the toast segment, I leaned forward slightly, but my name never came. Gregory raised his glass first, then Noah's father. Even Janet gave a tearful speech, dramatic and rehearsed, thanking everyone for their support. I sat there gripping the gift box I had brought for Emily. It was a photo frame. I had carved myself a picture of her and me when she was 8, standing next to the fire truck, both of us covered in soot, grinning like idiots. That moment had meant everything to us. Now it felt like a relic from another life. When the time came for gift presentations, I stood and walked slowly toward the stage. My steps felt heavy, my palms clammy. I handed the box to the wedding planner, then turned to face Emily. She looked at me, eyes uncertain, lips parted slightly like she wanted to speak. But before she could, a voice rang out behind me. "Gregory," loud, clear, slicing through the music. "Interesting choice of gift," he said, already halfway up from his chair. "I suppose even a man with no blood ties can pick out a decent picture frame." The room stilled. Someone chuckled uncomfortably. A glass clinked too loudly. I turned to face him, my jaw tight. Gregory smiled, slow and cold. I mean, how would a caretaker know what a daughter really wants? Choosing a wedding dress, planning a life, these are blood things, aren't they? Emily rose from her chair. Her voice was low but firm. Stop it, Uncle Greg. He looked genuinely surprised. Just stating facts, Em. Lana stepped in next. Enough. But the damage was done. Whispers spread. A few heads turned toward me with raised brows. I turned back to Emily, who now looked pale, her hands trembling slightly. She whispered something to Lana, who gave a quick nod. Then Emily took a deep breath and walked toward the microphone. The MC looked confused, checking the schedule, but Emily gestured for silence. I'll say something, she said. My heart raced. I had no idea what she was about to do, but I saw it in her eyes. She was ready. The microphone in Emily's hand shook just a little as she stepped fully into the spotlight. The chatter died instantly. Dozens of heads turned. The band stopped mid-melody. Even the MC backed away uncertain. Thank you all for being here, Emily said, her voice wavering only slightly. Before we continue, I want to pause for something personal. Very personal. She looked at me. Dad, will you come up here, please? I didn't move at first. I thought I had misheard her. But she nodded gently and her eyes didn't leave mine. Slowly I stood. The path to the stage felt longer than it should have. Each step echoed louder than the last. She handed me the microphone. And then she said, clear as day, if anyone still questions who my real father is, I'd like you to hear his story. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the room. Gregory lowered his champagne glass. Janet stiffened in her seat. The entire hall went silent. I looked at Emily. She gave a single nod. My mouth went dry, but I raised the microphone. I was 27 when I found Emily in a burn unit at Mercy General. A house fire had destroyed everything. Her mother, Janet, had disappeared. The hospital had no emergency contacts. Just a baby barely a year old, covered in soot and wrapped in gauze. I paused, scanning the crowd. Some looked stunned, others leaned forward. I wasn't married. I wasn't even sure I could be a father. But I kept coming back. I brought toys, I sang to her. I talked to her like she could understand. And over time she smiled at the sound of my voice. People think parenthood is about biology. That blood makes you a father. It doesn't. Showing up does. Waking up at 3 a.m. for nightmares, sitting through school plays and ER visits, standing beside her at every heartbreak, that's what makes a father. A few sniffles echoed. Someone dabbed their eyes with a napkin. I never asked to be called Dad. She just did it one day. Out of the blue, she said it like it had always been true, and to me from that moment on it was. I turned to Emily. You are my daughter, not by accident, by choice, and I'd make that choice 1,000 times over. Emily stepped closer and took the microphone back. There was a beat of silence. Then she turned to the guests. If anyone still thinks love needs a blood test to be valid, maybe this isn't the wedding for you. Her voice didn't tremble. Her spine was straight. Applause started slow, then louder. Someone stood, then another, and the atmosphere shifted. They weren't just clapping for her. They were clapping for us. The applause faded slowly, but the silence that followed was heavier than before. I could feel every eye locked on me. Emily had taken her seat, her hand resting on her lap, her gaze unwavering. I cleared my throat and took a breath. There's more to this story, I said, and I want you to hear it all. I reached into my inner jacket pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. The paper was old, the ink faded, but I had kept it all these years. I held it up so people could see. This is a letter Janet wrote to me the night she walked out of the hospital. She didn't hand it to me. She left it with a nurse. In it she said she couldn't do it. She couldn't be a mother. Her life was falling apart, no support system, no plan, just fear. I paused, letting the weight of those words settle. She said Emily would be better off without her, and she begged me to raise her. Not just temporarily, permanently. She made that decision, and I honored it. Then I held up another document, a court-stamped guardianship decree from 2001. I pointed to the signature line. This wasn't an arrangement made in secret, it was legal, official. I became her legal guardian through the system. I didn't take her, I didn't manipulate anyone. I earned the right to be her father by showing up every day. I looked at Emily. She nodded at me again, reassuring. But there's something else. Lana stepped forward, handed me her phone. I turned it so everyone could hear. A voicemail from Janet, recorded 2 months ago. I tapped play. Her voice came through crackling slightly. I know I shouldn't be calling, but I miss her. I miss what I gave up. I wasn't strong enough back then. I thought I could come back and explain, but I see now she doesn't need me. She has you. She always had you. And maybe I was just jealous. I'm sorry, Henry. You were always the better parent. I stopped the recording. A hush fell over the room. Some gasped. Others sat stunned. Janet, pale-faced, stood up in the back. Her eyes met mine for a brief second before she turned and slipped out of the hall. Then Gregory shot to his feet. "This is manipulation," he barked. "A performance. You think this erases the truth?" Emily stood too. Calm, steady. "Gregory, you tried to take me away when I was 11. You thought you knew better. But the court didn't side with you, and neither did I. And now you're doing it again, trying to rewrite the story, but you weren't there." "He was." She turned toward Noah. Her voice softened, but there was steel beneath it. "And if you're still questioning who I am and who raised me, then maybe this wedding shouldn't happen." A ripple ran through the guests. Noah's face drained of color. He didn't speak. I looked across the room. Faces once skeptical were now filled with something closer to respect. A few were even misty-eyed. I took the microphone again. "I'm not here to play hero. I'm not here to shame anyone, but I won't let decades of love be brushed aside because someone decided blood matters more than sacrifice." I raised Emily. I was there for her first steps, her nightmares, her school dances. I stood in the rain for every soccer game. I cleaned every scraped knee, and I never once needed a DNA test to know she was mine. That silence again. A reverent, understanding silence. Someone in the back began clapping, slowly, then stronger. Then others joined. One by one, the room rose in applause. They weren't clapping out of pity. They were acknowledging a truth. They weren't just clapping for her. They were clapping for us. And for the first time that day, I felt seen, not as a caretaker, not as an outsider, but as what I had always been. A father. There was no music, no vows, just silence hanging heavy in the air. Emily stepped forward slowly and deliberately. She turned to Noah, standing just a few feet away, his face, pale hands at his sides. Her voice, though quiet, cut through the room like a blade. "Noah, I loved you. Or I thought I did. But love without courage isn't love at all. When I needed you to stand up to speak out, you stood still. And now I know I can't marry someone who doesn't know how to protect what's right." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Noah looked like he'd been punched. He tried to take her hand, but she pulled it back. "I'm sorry," she said, "but this wedding is off." She reached for the ring on her finger, slid it off, and placed it gently in Noah's palm. He didn't move. Then she turned to me. Her eyes were wet but steady. "Thank you for everything, Dad." She wrapped her arms around me, and the room, once buzzing with awkward murmurs and scandalous whispers, quieted again. In the crowd, cameras flashed. I noticed Eliza Foster, a reporter from the Asheville Chronicle, lowering her phone. Her eyes were wide, eyebrows arched in surprise. It didn't take long. Within hours, photos hit social media, hashtags trended, and within days, stories emerged about Mitchell and Noah's family business. Allegations of fraudulent accounting, hush contracts, and rumors of money laundering started surfacing. Clients dropped out, sponsors canceled deals, a local news outlet even aired an expose. The perfect image of the Mitchells, carefully crafted for years, shattered overnight. The house of cards collapsed publicly and dramatically. Gregory, too, faced his own reckoning. The law firm that once held his name on the front door now sought distance. Ethics committees opened investigations. His past cases were re-examined. His reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, was now reduced to footnotes of scandal. Janet disappeared as suddenly as she'd returned. Her name stopped appearing in guest lists, photos, even family mentions. Emily never brought her up again, and I never asked. Some absences were better left unfilled. Emily, on the other hand, surprised me. She didn't indulge in media attention. She declined interviews. She shut out offers for brand deals, book rights, podcasts. Instead, she took a leave of absence from work, packed a small bag, and drove west. She and Lana rented a quiet cabin near Lake Lure. No cell signal, no distractions, just airspace and time. We exchanged emails once a week. Nothing big, just updates. Photos of the lake, sketches of ideas she was playing with, some memories. Then one Thursday afternoon, she appeared on my doorstep, wind-chilled and sun-browned. I didn't ask why she was back. I just opened the door wider. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we had birthday pancakes. Homework marathons, heart-to-hearts when she had her first heartbreak. She cupped her hands around a mug of Earl Grey. "I feel like I aged 5 years in 5 weeks," she said with a dry chuckle. I smiled. Experience tends to do that. She looked out the window, the late October sun casting long shadows on the floor. Did I do the right thing? I didn't rush to answer. I let the silence fill the space the way a father learns to with time. "I think you did the only thing that would let you live with yourself," I said. Her eyes glistened but didn't spill. "I'm not afraid to start over. But I don't know what that looks like yet." "It looks like freedom," I replied. "Messy, raw, beautiful freedom." She laughed. "God, I missed your weird wisdom." We talked for hours, about nothing, about everything, about how her childhood memories still smelled like burnt toast and motor oil, about how I once tried to build her a treehouse but failed miserably, about how none of this drama, this loss had changed the fact that we were still family. She stood up before she left, slinging her bag over her shoulder. One day she said, "When I do find the right person, I want you to walk me down that aisle." I stood too. "Of course. And this time you get to pick the damn flowers." We laughed, and for the first time the laughter didn't carry sorrow behind it. As she drove away, I watched her car disappear down the winding driveway. Autumn leaves danced in her wake, and just like that, the storm that had hovered over us for so long had passed. Not forgotten, but weathered, together. Emily moved back to Asheville 2 weeks later. No announcement, no fanfare. Just a U-Haul parked outside her old apartment and a quiet knock on my door. She had a plan, not grand, not flashy, but hers. She leased a small storefront on Main Street, the kind of place that still had creaky floorboards and hand-painted signage. Inside, she opened her graphic design studio, a handful of clients, mostly local businesses. She named it Birch and Ink. The logo was a simple birch tree with roots reaching deep. I visited every morning with coffee. She always pretended she wasn't expecting me, but there was always a second cup waiting. I didn't return to the firehouse. That chapter had closed years ago. But I found purpose again, volunteering at the local youth center, helping teens who had lost parents or were in foster care, teaching them basic life skills, showing up at their games, helping them fix up old bikes, being the adult I once wished had shown up more often. Our lives slowed down in the best way, simple rhythms, shared meals, familiar silences, but more than anything, peace. Then came the article, a piece Emily wrote for an online magazine. She never told me she was writing it. It was titled Not Blood But Bond. She told our story, from the hospital to the courthouse, from school plays to birthday pancakes, from the wedding to the truth. She ended the article with one sentence: I never needed a biological father. I just needed my dad. The article went viral. Comments poured in. Stories from strangers, from daughters and fathers, from adoptive parents, from stepdads, from guardians, people saying thank you, people sharing their own heartbreak and healing. A week later, a video from the wedding surfaced. The moment Emily handed me the mic, the speech, the tears, the applause. Someone had filmed it on their phone and uploaded it. Within days, it hit 1 million views, then 2, then 5. Media outlets called. Interview requests flooded in, morning shows, podcasts, advocacy groups. We said no to almost all of them, but one invitation stood out. A small nonprofit in Oregon wanted to honor me with their Father of the Year award. Emily insisted we go. At the event, surrounded by other families, I stood awkwardly at the podium. I didn't have a speech prepared. I had rehearsed nothing. I just said I'm not anyone special. I just showed up, every day, for the person who needed me to be there. And they stood, all of them, applauding, not just for me, for every person in that room who had chosen love over biology, commitment over convenience. On the flight home, Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. I smiled, closed my eyes. I never needed blood, I said. Just the chance to be called Dad. 3 months later, Birch and Ink expanded. Emily hired her first assistant. I helped paint the new back office. On the wall, she hung a framed photo of us from the wedding. Below it, a plaque for the one who never gave up. Sometimes I still hear whispers in town. Some folks will always talk. Some will always question. But when we walk into the diner on Maple Street and Emily greets me with a hug and says, "Hi, Dad, nothing else matters." If you've ever known a father like that or been one yourself, share this story. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that matter.